My name is Sami. I'm a research analyst with Messari, and today I'll be giving a short talk on the state of Bitcoin. So over the years, we've seen many Bitcoin narratives come and go. These narratives are important because they help us attempt to explain some of the irrational price action while also helping us justify why we're holding or believing in an asset. With how chaotic 2022 was, we saw many of the prevailing narratives at the time challenged and sort of fall apart. So let's take inflation hedge as an example. Last year, CPI rates in the US were hitting multi-decade highs, and we saw Bitcoin's price crashing. Moving on to store of value, it's hard to consider an asset a store of value when it crashes more than 70%. And then the last narrative of Bitcoin as a bear market asset outperformer was also challenged because for the first time we saw Bitcoin's market cap dominance start to go down and Bitcoin just kind of fade into the background. While we may believe in these narratives in the long run, it's difficult for an outsider to look at these narratives and be able to believe them with what was happening at the time. So luckily, we have some new narratives that have emerged this year, and that's what I'm going to be diving into. So first, the narrative of outside money. We all know that Bitcoin was birthed from the 2008 financial crisis. Earlier this year, we had Bitcoin able to experience its first real banking crisis. So this happened between Q1 and Q2. We saw the failure of Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and First Republic Bank. Signature Bank was the second largest bank failure by asset size in the US. And with the first bank failure, we immediately saw Bitcoin's price surge 35%. And so what this period really demonstrated was that Bitcoin was being seen as a safe haven outside of the traditional financial system. So that concept of outside money started to resonate with people more because Bitcoin is the ultimate bearer asset, right? It's something you can own and just have confidence that you will always be able to own this. And this started to resonate with people, as you can see with all the different headlines on the right side of the screen. The next narrative that emerged was Bitcoin as more than just a store of value or medium of exchange. So early in January, we saw the emergence of the Ordinals protocol. And essentially what this did is it enabled Bitcoin, or it enabled arbitrary data to be stored on Bitcoin. And so users quickly jumped on this newfound capability to mint NFTs on chain. And later down the line, we saw token standards emerge on Bitcoin. So BRC20 emerged, and instantly, naturally, people started minting meme coins on Bitcoin. And so you can see the chart on the right with inscription activity taking off. And a really interesting chart is this bottom one, which shows that NFT sales volume in May, June, and July actually surpassed Solana and Polygon. So there's meaningful activity happening. And all this activity kind of led to an increased activity on the base layer. We saw in Q2 a 44% increase in transactions, and a 300% increase in transaction fees. And that latter part's important because people started looking at ordinals as a potential way to solve the security budget problem. So with this increased activity, obviously we naturally had congestion on the base layer. So that re-sparked conversation about how the heck do we scale Bitcoin? Lightning has been around for a minute now, and really we haven't seen much adoption. That sort of started to change this year. You had major exchanges like Binance and Coinbase finally integrate Lightning. But we also saw alternatives emerge, which is good. We need competition. Sidechains also became a very popular subject or topic. Stacks is one of the most well-known Bitcoin sidechains. We also saw the Bitcoin Proposal 300 and 301, known as drive chains, become a hotly debated topic. And this is the idea of bringing native sidechain functionality to Bitcoin. But lastly, what I believe to be the most interesting one is the potential for sovereign rollups on Bitcoin. So Ordinals unlocked Bitcoin to be used as a data availability layer without any changes to the underlying protocol. And lastly, which we'll touch on later today, is the idea of zero-knowledge rollups on Bitcoin. Another narrative which I honestly did not anticipate to see this soon was, Bitcoin as an ESG asset. So let's take a look at the chart at the top. You can see hash rate surging, which means more miners are coming online, while at the same time, the network's carbon emissions is declining. And this is a narrative violation, because everyone's talking about, the Bitcoin network's carbon emissions are going to keep increasing. No, this is a chart by Bloomberg Intelligence, which is showing the exact opposite. And the only reason for that is miners are using more renewable energy sources, and that's exactly what this bottom chart shows. So the narrative in general about Bitcoin's energy usage has changed. In the last 90 days, KPMG, a top 4 accounting firm, released a report giving a positive ESG rating to Bitcoin. We saw Cambridge admit that their Bitcoin energy calculations were overstated, multiple academic papers stating the benefits of Bitcoin mining, and so on. And I think the two main drivers of this is, one, Bitcoin's ability to reduce greenhouse gases. And so I'll actually have a panel on this tomorrow, but we have miners who are partnering with oil and gas companies to reduce the amount of natural gas that's being flared, which is reducing methane into the atmosphere. We also have miners that are partnering with landfills and reducing the amount of methane that's being leaked into the environment as well, and using that to power their operations. You can't say that about any other data center workload. And then lastly, the idea of Bitcoin strengthening electric grids, which we're seeing in real time in Texas. So Bitcoin is a flexible load, which means you can turn it off and on very easily. And you can balance the grid and help strengthen it through that. So kind of to wrap this all up, there's this narrative of Bitcoin dominance returning. There's around $50 billion of Bitcoin held in treasuries, 12 billion of that being countries. We've seen miners being countries starting to emerge. Two examples are the UAE and Oman, which recently announced that they're Bitcoin mining in order to monetize their excess energy. The spot ETF is honestly a very highly talked about incident that occurred. So BlackRock filed for a spot ETF. Many other financial asset managers followed suit. Still undetermined whether or not the SEC is going to approve it. However, this is still a major development when you have a firm like BlackRock entering the arena. Then lastly, while not a benefit to our overall industry, there's been a more hostile regulatory environment. And so the SEC has been going after major exchanges, been going after other crypto assets, and it's really just positioning Bitcoin as the only asset right now with regulatory clarity. So when you combine all of this, I really think we're just undergoing a period where Bitcoin is going through a renaissance. You have new use cases, narratives changing, and developers returning to Bitcoin. And I think that last part is most important, is you have developers coming back and looking to experiment and innovate on chain. And that's exactly what's going to follow this presentation. So I'm going to be moderating a panel with some panelists who are going to be talking about what builders are building on Bitcoin. So I'd like to go ahead and invite them to the stage right now.